All right, we're telling you about this Mexican rift right now where the foreign secretary is going to be meeting at the White House, I think, in about an hour and a half or so. But something interesting from the former Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, who had made note at a global energy conference going on right now, in fact, just a few minutes ago, that we're sending mixed signals to the world and to our friends, talking about bilateral trade talks that diminish if we keep changing our posture. He was also saying that this is confusing investors, and he supports trade objectives, but may not support the tactical moves of this administration. In other words, for our friends who, with whom we secured a deal, suddenly to rip that up and start something else based on another matter, he thinks is probably going to compound the suspicions that others have of us when we go into a deal. The former Reagan budget director, David Stockman, is equally concerned, joins me right now. So the approach is what worries you.
Well, the approach, the message to the world is we have an unhinged madman in the Oval Office. He has gone off the deep end on trade. He has basically declared himself the trade dictator. He's using these statutes for reasons that were never intended. We have a border control problem. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. You don't use a tariff on a border control problem. You don't investigate European automakers because they're sending BMWs and Porsches to the United States, and it's a national security problem. It's not a national security problem. He is totally abusing all of these statutes in order to carry out the worst mercantilist, protectionist, tariff-driven trade policy.
Well, could I use an analogy I tell my teenage sons when I hear from them? Well, they did it first. So they've been screwing us, and now we're kind of zinging back.
Look, if they're going to fill their harbor with rocks, should we do the same thing in order to keep imports
The president says
out?
yes, because that'll have them less inclined to fill their harbor with rocks.
No, you can't. That is not the role of the government. This is big government in spades. This is. Well,
the president says when it comes to China, that's big government.
Well, they got big government, but we're doing the same thing. Okay, the problem today is our wages average about $30 an hour, fully loaded for benefits, taxes, the rest of it. $5 an hour in China. This is an economic differential problem, and we have a Federal Reserve that keeps inflating the U.S. economy at 2% a year, which is crazy. We should be deflating, becoming more competitive. The Fed.
Well, then what did you make of the Federal Reserve? Essentially, I'm the one who said this. They didn't say it. That we have your back. If this slows the economy down, we might cut rates.
You mean if you do something really stupid, then the Fed is going to print even more money to compensate for the stupidity on trade policy? What are they thinking? We have the lowest.
So you think that's a mistake?
A horrible mistake. We've got the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. We have a 119-month-old expansion, now the longest in history, and they're going to cut rates even further after we've had rates so low for 10 years that they've been below the inflation rate. I mean, the Fed shouldn't be in the business.
Well, we don't have much inflation now.
Well, no, the inflation rate is running at 2%. Everybody says we don't have much. It's still 2%. If you lower the funds rate, which they want to do, the market's pricing in 70 basis points right now, that's 1.6% money market rate in a 2% inflation environment. That's money that costs nothing.
But if all of this is a big worry.
It's a terrible. Wait a minute.
But it's not showing up in the markets.
Well, the markets are totally addicted to easy money from the Fed. This has nothing to do with the outlook for the world economy.
But don't you think if they were concerned that the Fed was behind the curve or doing something stupid, they would be selling off en masse?
Yeah, no, this is the problem. The Fed last fall said, finally, we're going to normalize interest rates, get them above the inflation rate. We're going to take this bloated balance sheet of $4 trillion and begin to shrink it. The market went into a hissy fit. We had the Christmas Eve sell-off. And what did the Fed do? They pivoted and basically capitulated to all the whiners and crybabies on Wall Street.
Well, you're making friends left and right. What happened with you and the president? You liked him in the beginning when he was running, didn't you?
Yeah, I voted for it.
All right, so what happened?
I voted for him not because I thought he had a program. I knew he was a protectionist, but we didn't need any more Hillary Clinton. We didn't need any more establishment foreign policy intervening everywhere in the world. I thought he would try to bring us back to America first. He's trying, but he's got so many bad advisors that they.
But you just alluded to the record low unemployment and all that. I mean, you must be doing something.
It has nothing to do with Trump. Okay, this is simply a.
Oh, you'd blame him if things were going to hell in a handbasket?
No. I mean, a president doesn't cause the unemployment rate. Capitalism capitalism does.
I know, but you know the old drill. I mean, we're going to blame the president if things go south. He might get some credit. They're going well.
Either way. See, I want to get back.
Ronald Reagan, was it a Reagan boom when you worked for him?
It was a free market boom that was
And who got it booming?
The government got out of the way. Okay?
Well, Reagan got the government out of the way. Would you give this president credit for...
No, he's not getting the government out of the way.
You don't think he's a Reagan?
No, he's the opposite of a Reagan. He's a big government, anti-conservative. His policy violates every rule of conservative free market economics I've ever heard of, and I've been at this business since 1970.
But, I mean, didn't Ronald Reagan violate a lot of that with deficits that you warned about, the famous taken to the woodshed moment?
Yeah.
That he went too far.
He went too far, but he didn't intend them. When it comes to Trump, he doesn't care. He thinks debt is good. He calls himself the king of debt.
You hate debt.
I hate debt in general, but at this stage...
But we're doing just fine with it.
But at this stage of course, everybody's just doing just fine with debt until they file for bankruptcy the next day. Remember that old saying, how did you go bankrupt? Slowly at first, then all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Okay, the problem
So you think that it's just a matter of time, this debt that's been building up?
Of course it's a matter of time. We're going...
Give me an idea of the exact time so I know when to get out.
The 2020s, because in 3 years there are going to be 11,600 people retiring a day. The welfare state cost is going to soar in the 2020s. We should be now, putting away
They never do that.
reserves.
They never do that.
And we're going to go into the 2020s with massive explosion of spending, with the debt heading to 40 trillion, not 20 trillion, where it is today, and the politics totally paralyzed. Because when you get 80 million baby boomers, I'm one of them, retired, there's never going to be any reform of the entitlements. It's too late. Trump said, no, we're not going to touch them. Trump said...
Democrats aren't eager to touch them either.
Well, of course, but the job of the Republican Party, I'm sorry, is to lead the way, is to show...
And to be fair, Ronald Reagan did that with the great Social Security Commission.
Yeah, well, he did. I was part of that. Right. Yeah. Okay. So the point is, we need fiscal rectitude. We're getting the opposite.
Any of the Democrats hint of that with you?
No. I mean, I think it's fairly hopeless at the moment. It's going to be a contest.
Man, oh man, is anything going right?
We are drifting towards some fairly bad problems.
Well, tell me.
I think we are. I call it the Debtberg, okay?
Wow.
We're drifting towards the Debtberg.
What does that mean? Then what's going to happen?
What it means is business has more debt than ever before, and when the economy turns down, there's going to be bankruptcies left and right. The federal government didn't use this 119-month longest in history expansion to get its finances in order. I mean, even J.M. Keynes, rolling in his grave today, said at the top of a business cycle, this long, you have to have a surplus so you're ready for the next downturn. We didn't even do that. We have a Federal Reserve that kept interest rates so low for so long that we've fueled speculation.
But those very low rates are what could make this debt manageable, unless you see them skyrocket.
Rates have to normalize. I mean, Neil,
they haven't. We've been talking for years, and they haven't.
They will. Okay, they will.
Yeah.
They absolutely.
Sometime in the 2020s, you said.
No, or you're going to destroy the economy. If you have interest rates that are below the inflation rate, it means the real cost of money is negative. Sooner or later, you're going to create so much.
We're kind of at the level, right? Inflation is 2%, and an overnight bank lending rate 2.25%, 2.5%.
Okay, but on a 10-year basis, they've averaged under. Now, do you want to invest your money for zero after inflation forever, and then pay taxes on the nominal return you get? We are.
People have been doing that for a decade.
I know, and it's been wrong. It's been wrong.
Well, for those who've been doing it for the last decade, it's been fine.
The Titanic was steaming across the Atlantic at a pretty good clip until it hit an iceberg.
Is that what happened? All right, so let me get your sense then of if the president isn't reelected, and right now it looks like he could be, but I don't know what your sense is. Are second-term presidents more inclined to address these kind of issues? I mean, I thought of George Bush Jr. when he was elected, came back, trying to find ways to address entitlements, to do that. That's when you get the verb for that.
Well, maybe you do, but actually, if you look at history, Ronald Reagan didn't do anything about the deficit in his second term. George Bush actually made it worse. We got
Medicare prescription drugs, right?
Yeah, and big increase in
So in other words, try as you might, they can't
talk
change.
They talk it, but they don't do it. Okay, so
and the trade thing is a manifestation of that.
The trade thing is a terrible, terrible idea. I mean, Trump has been a protectionist since 1979. You can find all kinds of crazy quotes. And it's just counterproductive. It is attacking American workers, consumers, importers. A lot of businesses import semi-finished products and components and parts. All of this is raising their costs. We are really mucking up this economy because the government should stay out of trade and let businesses decide where to locate, where to
That is,
invest.
unless the government is rigging it.
Well, if the government is rigging it over there, then an American business goes to China and whines that the government in China is unfair. Don't go to China. Go to Australia, someplace where they'll treat you right.
And by the way, they just lowered rates in Australia.
Okay,
first time in 3 years.
But the point is, we shouldn't be taxing a worker in Milwaukee so that some corporate CEO can go on, Bubble Vision and whine about China not treating him well, but yet he's in a growth economy.
You're talking about going on CNBC.
Yeah, that's Bubble Vision.
David, I got you. All right, David Stockman, former Reagan budget director, very, very smart guy. You might agree or disagree, but the fact of the matter is, we like to get all points of view here, and we do. Fair and balanced, bull and bear, Republican, Democrat, conservative. Well, you know. More after this.